Call this meeting to order of the Clackamas County Commission. And first, I would like to welcome everyone here. And I will ask for the roll call first for who's here.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Damon?
Here.
Commissioner Bernard?
Here.
Commissioner Leininger?
Here.
Chair Lehan?
Here.
And I think we expect Commissioner Savas momentarily.
Yeah, he's been detained. First, I will ask that everyone rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then I would ask to approve the order of agenda.
I move we approve the order of the agenda.
I second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Leininger that we approve the order of agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes 4-0, which is unanimous in this case. And then I want to say a few words about all of our visitors today, or many of our visitors today, who are here for Take Your Child to Work Day. Some of them quite young. Take Your Child to Work Day is a national event held annually on the fourth Thursday in April. This program was started as Take Our Daughters to Work Day by the Ms. Foundation for Women in 1993, with the goal of taking a day to bring girls and young women into the workplace to mentor and inspire the next generation of women. Over the years, formalized programs at companies, schools, and government agencies have grown to include boys as well as girls in activities designed to introduce children to careers and the opportunities available to them in the workplace. So I know we have a number of children of county employees here with their parents, including Commissioner Damon and her daughter, Josie. And I think what we will do, and well, before we go down, do you want to say something before we go down? Because I'll just give you a warning what we're going to do. We're going to go down, and I'm going to have all of the kids and their parent come up in front here so that we can get a picture of you. And then we're going to pass the mic around to each of the kids, so that and your job as one of the kids here today will be to introduce yourself and introduce your parent and tell us what your parent does. So Maybe we will start over here. So you have some time to think about that.
Well, I just want to say that, nothing warms my heart more than to look out and see a room full of children. This is why we do the work that we do, and I'm just so glad that you were able to join us today. So with that, I think I'm going to turn the mic over to Josie, who can say a couple of words.
I've gone to work with my mom since I was 8 years old, and it started in, I think it was JLA. And now she's a county commissioner, and I'm up here with her. And that's actually something that is really special, and I think I should not think upon it as something that I do every day. So also, I've met all the commissioners before, and I think they're doing a really great job here, and I like seeing how many kids are here today with their parents, like my mom said, and I hope you guys all have a great day today.
Thanks.
With that, why don't we walk down and all the kids and parents could come up here and we'll squish in here or into the front as much as we can. We have a photographer over here to shoot you.
Take a photo.
Take a photo. Okay, thank you. And remember, they have to be really close to the mic.
Wow, just sort of stand around there. Yeah, you can fill in here. People can stand right in front of here. Stand next to your parents. This is a lot of people.
I don't think there's been a picture of this quite this big.
Exactly. Have everybody in. Have everybody in.
Yeah.
And the back.
Yeah. Go up on the dais.
Does anybody want to? Do you want to stand on the back?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Someone can sit right here too.
Oh, no, I'm staying here. Okay, we've got a lot of people. We have a lot of people here today. Hello. And I can see that you have to hold this very close. I don't feel like it's making noise. Is noise coming out? This? Okay. Let's start over on one side, and perhaps over here would be good. And if you could introduce yourself and tell us who your parent is and what their job is.
My name is Karina Noreen, and this is my dad, Kevin Noreen, and he works in the engineering division.
Thank you. Can you say that, your name and your...
My name's Bryce Oliver, and this is my dad, Lance Oliver.
What's his job?
Road worker.
Road worker. Excellent. We need plenty of road workers. How about you?
I'm Matt Story. My dad is a lawyer. I'm Rachel Story. My dad is Chris Story, and he is a lawyer.
My name is Jessica Mulkey, and my dad's name is Greg Mulkey, and my dad is a supervisor in the MHO in behavioral health. My name is Audrey.
What's your mom's name? What's your mom's name?
Darcy.
Hey, where does mommy work?
What'd she do?
My mommy works planning.
All right.
My name's Ethan Holmes, and my dad is Dave Holmes. He works for the road department. My name is Hayden Holmes, and my dad's name is Dave, and he works for the road department.
My name's Tyler Pagel. My mom works for the road department, and her name is Christy Pagel.
My name is Kylie Pagel, and my mom is Christy Pagel, and she works for the road department.
My name is Alejandra.
And what's your mommy's name? Where does mommy work? Okay. A little bit shy.
Hi, I'm Sarah McCready, and this is my incredible daddy, Brian McCready, and he works for Child, Youth, and Family. So, yeah.
My name's Savannah Tackett, and this is my grandma Diana, and she works for recording.
My name is Lauren Rumbaugh, and this is my mom, Mary Rumbaugh, and she works in behavioral health division.
My name is Ayla Martin, and my mom is Judy Martin, and she works in the family and children, the youth and children family division, I think. That's what it's.
Say your name. Just say your name. All right. This is Lon Yu Wilson. I'm Jay Wilson. I work in emergency management.
This is James Luce, and I'm Sarah Luce, and I work for the MHO.
I'm Lexi Blevins, and this is my dad, David Blevins. He works for a road department.
I'm Gunny Fine, and this is my dad, Eric, and he works for the road department.
My name's McKenna Johnson, and my dad's Dan Johnson, and he works for the development agency.
You got my name right. That's good. Anybody else down here? Oh.
My name is Emma Douglas, and my mom's name is Emma Douglas, and she works. Her name is Pam Douglas, and she works for
Public health. Her name is Mom.
Yes.
My name is Jessica McGowan. My mom is Maria McGowan. She's a case manager for social services.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go up around that. Right. Oh, yeah. Did we already get a picture of everybody? You had some pictures. Maybe the people in the front can sit down, and then the TV cameras will be able to see the people in the back. Or does it?
Your name?
I'm Raiden Ju.
Papa. Dad's name is Papa, who works where?
The roads.
In the roads. Okay, thank you.
My name's Gabriel McNeese, and I'm here with my mom, who works in the social department, social services.
My name is Trevor Cowan, and my mom is Amy Kyle, and she works for Water Environment Services.
My name is Jackson Staples, and my mom's Amy Staples, and she works for Finance Grants.
Connor Abbott, his dad's Shane Abbott, and I work in the road department.
I'm Cody Ho, and my mom is Candy Ho, and she works at North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
My name's Alexis Aronson, and my mom's name is Susan Aronson. She works in finance department.
My name's Olivia Epping, and my mom, Myra Epping, works in social services. I'm Sydney Kelly, and my dad is Steve Kelly, and he works in the community development department.
My name is Aaliyah Eimholt. My grandma is Lori Stomps, and she works in the community development.
My name is Ava Van Duzer, and this is my mom, Chris Van Duzer, and she works in the Clackamas County Parks and District.
Did we get everybody? Did we get everyone?
I think we have everybody who wanted to say a few words.
Okay. So a round of applause for our kids and families today. So for those kids that, if you didn't get a little bag, you can stop by the office on your way out and pick one up.
Caroline has them.
Caroline has them? Okay.
Well, this is the biggest turnout we've had for Take Your Child to Work Day that I recall. So thank you to everyone for coming, and especially we had an excellent turnout from the road department, it would seem.
Well done.
And they are easy to spot in their road outfits and safety gear. So thank you for coming. You are welcome to stay for any part of the meeting that you want to stay for, but I know your parents perhaps have a busy schedule as well, so it's entirely up to you if you want to stay or go, but thank you for coming. And then we will continue on with the rest of our business meeting, and I would certainly ask that everyone be try to demonstrate our very best civic behavior for all of the young people who are here today. Commissioner Leininger.
You know, I see that some of the kids are leaving. I hope you're not leaving to tell my own children that Take Your Kids to Work Day was so awesome here in Clackamas County. I'm just glad that the Lake Oswego doesn't get the county cable channel, so they won't see this wonderful festive thing. But I did want to say, if any young people are sticking around, we have public comment that comes up where people who live in our community get to spend 3 minutes telling us things that they need, that they want, that they think we could do better, that they think are going well. And if any of you want to make a public comment during that time, we would love to hear from you, because you're a resident of this community and we work for you just as much as we work for your grown-ups. And so there are blue cards you can fill out. Please feel free to stay if you're so inclined, and thanks for being here.
And then I will remind people that there is a replay schedule. So if you would like to see yourself on TV, and perhaps some of you making your TV debut today, it is on the BCC channel on Thursday, well, right now at live. You can see it tomorrow at noon and 8 o'clock at night. On Saturday, I'm sure you'll all be up at 1 a.m., but also again at 8 a.m., and many kids are up on Saturday at 8 a.m. And Sunday it's on at 8 p.m., and Monday it's on at 7 and 5, and Tuesday at 1 and 8. And you can find these times
on our webpage.
On our webpage if you want to find when it's going to be replayed. But there are many opportunities. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 opportunities to catch this. Or record it if you would like to do that. And with that, we will move on to, as soon as I can find our agenda. And I just want to say, with regards to, and people could move forward if they wanted to, with regards to citizen communication, we have had a number of conversations as a board about how to make the process work better, because we are coming to realize that it doesn't seem right at the moment to be working for anyone. Doesn't seem to be working for citizens or for us as a commission or our staff in terms of getting the business of the county done in an efficient and effective way. And so we're going to be changing it up, not today, but over the next few weeks. It's hard to put changes in place before, right on the heels of right in advance of budget time because the schedule is all different during budget season. But the intention will be to try moving citizen communication forward in the agenda, but limiting it in time, in total amount of time, and then having one meeting a month be in the evening that would be devoted to citizen communication. So that's or nearly all devoted to citizen communication. That's kind of the direction that we're headed, and we hope that it will be both have more opportunities for interaction and be less intimidating in some ways for people who find this setting very formal, and still allow us time to get the work done. Part of the problem with not having time limits is that we run into times when we must leave for other engagements. And one of those, for instance, today at 11:30 is the annual address for the Port of Portland. And it's at 11:30, and probably none of us will make it there. But it is, that's unfortunate because that the Port of Portland is, and certainly if we're done by then, I will try to go because someone from Clackamas County, preferably the chair of the commission, should be there at the Port of Portland for their annual address. The Port of Portland is a critical partner for the success of Clackamas County in terms of our contact with the rest of the world and the potential that we have to export products, and our absence is not good. But these things are scheduled, and so we're constantly making choices as to what the priorities are for being here or being at other meetings that are important to the county, and that's part of trying to keep control of the time. But anyway, just a heads up that we will be making those changes over the next few weeks. And with that, I have to get my right piece of paper. With that, we will proceed to the public hearing that we have before us today. And this is a first reading of ordinance replacing the 2004 ordinance establishing and adjusting fees for the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District. And we have Dave Militich here from North Clackamas Parks and Rec District, and Chris Story, who was introduced to us earlier by his children. And and we have, and I do need to announce that the board is now sitting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board and not as the County Commission. With that, I will turn it over to Dave, and he can explain.
Thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. I am up here with the lawyer, as we learned earlier, and I thought perhaps all of those young people here were going to make comments during the public hearing, but it looks like most of them have left, so we'll see who does show up for the public hearing. Well, we're here today with the first reading in follow-up to the study session we had a few weeks ago on the fee ordinance proposal. I'll just real quickly highlight some of the things we talked about during that study session that are included in the new ordinance and the reasons why we are proposing this ordinance. Recreation fees are discretionary, and that was the first point we were looking at in terms of these aren't similar to a utility rate or a permit fee, but these are discretionary. We have well over 200 fees, and if we were to add them all up, it would be significantly over 200 fees. That is including sports leagues, swim programs, birthday parties, wide variety of classes. So there's a lot of things that we offer throughout the year. We would like to be able to adjust those seasonally, and we publish 3 program catalogs throughout the year. So it would give us more flexibility to be able to adjust our fees as needed throughout the year. Many new programs are created during each of those seasons. Fees often change because of relationships, contract agreements with partners that we have, such as Clackamas Community College, numerous sports officials associations, those types of groups. It will help us in meeting our cost recovery goals, and it's very consistent with other local jurisdictions in terms of how recreation fees are set. And Chris, is there anything you want to add to the opening comments?
I thought we should run through briefly a description of what this ordinance will do and what the ordinance is that we're getting rid of. Because certainly you do set fees now, but the process that you follow was developed in 2004 that frankly was intended to give flexibility, but hasn't really worked in practice. It gives authority to the district administrator, which is Mr. Wheeler, to set fees in the course of a public hearing. But Mr. Wheeler is not an elected official. He can't hold a public hearing, so he comes to your public hearings and talks about it, and then you vote. So we end up doing it exactly like we would for the normal fee structure of Clackamas County, and which is updated once a year. The challenge of that is, of course, many of the recreational fees change. Certainly swimming is more popular in the summer and whatnot, so we are not very market responsive with our current fee structure. So the proposal that you have before you that will be under your consideration is to allow a delegated authority to the district administrator and the district director and their designees to appropriately set those fees within the boundaries that you establish with this ordinance. And the boundaries that you would establish look at 4 factors that would be weighed in deciding what the appropriate fee would be. Those 4 factors are customer service, making sure that we are reaching the customers that we are intending to serve. Cost recovery, as Dave mentioned, some of our programs we look for full cost recovery. Typically those are programs that serve adults. And some of our programs we frankly just subsidize them, and those are typically programs for the kids. A third factor that we cover is hardship. So if someone comes to us, whether adult or child, and they're not able to afford some of the fees but have a good reason or interest in a program, we will work with them to make sure that those remain available. And the fourth is market responsiveness. We watch the level of fees and services being provided by those around us to make sure that our residents are getting the optimal mix of recreation opportunities that we can provide them. And we're trying to make sure that we're matching the market, as it were, and being a little more nimble in providing those services. Those 4 parameters will be set on the delegation of authority to staff to set those fees throughout the year. Those, I would note, are the fees that are discretionary. No one has to pay any of them. It's a voluntary transaction, basically setting a price in the market. Any permit fees or others that are mandatory for services would come back to you and be set once a year per the normal fee process.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions? Oh, not commissioners, board members. Do you have any questions?
Nope.
Of the county board? Yeah. No? Then I would, this is a public hearing.
Yes.
And I have, if there's no questions, then I will, I believe I have one card here on this, and that is Michael Morrow. And so I will open the public hearing and call you on this item. And just give your name and address and.
Michael Morrow, 16000 Southeast Misty Drive, Happy Valley, 97086. And I am here today with my District Advisory Board Chairman cap on. We seem to be changing caps a lot around here. And I want to speak for the DAB. Chris and David already brought up most of the points that I was going to bring up. I just want to bring up a couple more. The DAB reviewed this and unanimously approved a motion to support it. As they already said, the recreation fees are discretionary, unlike utility and permit fees. Having maximum flexibility in setting fees allows us to more effectively and efficiently meet our recovery cost goals. And the DAB will continue to monitor fees on a regular basis and review cost recovery policies as they relate to fee increases. So you will have citizen input via the DAB on these fees, and so will the county administrator. That's really all I have.
Okay. Any questions?
Thanks.
Well, may I just add
Yeah,
something?
sure.
I want to note that Councilor Morrow is also, though not here in this capacity, also a city councilor in Happy Valley, and in that role, one of the most thoughtful, pragmatic, conscientious partners that I've had the pleasure of working with. And so thank you for taking time to be here in this other capacity, and also thanks for your service to Happy Valley and the community.
Thank you.
And on the DIAB Advisory Board. And then I don't have any other cards on this item, so I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion on this item.
To read it by title only.
Chair-
This is a motion to read the ordinance by title only. Exactly.
Chair Lehan, I move we read the ordinance replacing the 2004 ordinance establishing and adjusting fees for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District by title only.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Damon and seconded by Commissioner Leininger. I should have said board member Damon, and seconded by board member Leininger, that we read the ordinance replacing the 2004 ordinance by title only. Discussion. Commissioner,
I think
board
that
member.
this opens up a lot of opportunities for the district to actually stimulate use of the parks during certain times of the year that the 2004 ordinance didn't really allow. Also allows it to be competitive, and it allows it to, perhaps increase its market share. So I'm in strong support of this, and it's been a long time coming.
Okay. If there's no other comment, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0 and is unanimous. And with that, I will ask the clerk to assign a number and read the ordinance by title only.
Okay. This is going to be ordinance number 04-2012, an ordinance replacing the 2004 ordinance establish and adjusting fees for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
Okay? And with that, we will have the second reading of this. We won't actually vote on this item today, but we'll have the second reading on May 10th at the regularly scheduled 10 a.m. business meeting. So that would be it for that item. Thank you very much. And then the next item is a discussion item. It is a resolution adopting the vision, goals, and objectives for the Clackamas County Transportation Systems Plan. It is an update, staff update from Karen Burig from Department of DTD.
I've also invited Chip Skinner.
Oh, okay.
Chip's come on up here.
No, he can sit right there.
Oh, he can sit right there. Great. Okay, thanks. Should I sit there?
No, you sit there.
Thanks. Hi, good morning, Commissioners.
Karen has an idea.
No, that's all right. I invited Chip Janger to join me up here this morning because he is the chair of our Transportation System Plan Project Public Advisory Committee. And we've been working closely with our Public Advisory Committee on this project. So today you have a resolution before you to adopt the vision, goals, and objectives for the Clackamas County Transportation System Plan Update Project. This resolution came from your recommendation at a February 29th planning meeting that we had. We were able to give a background of where we were at on the Transportation System Plan Project. Where we are, we're about a third of the way through the project, and this is a very important time for the project. The vision, goals, and objectives set the foundation for which we'll use to guide our future recommendations for this project. And these recommendations will be related to transportation policies as well as projects. So one of the first things I wanted to say is that we do have a 22-member public advisory committee that has worked very hard over the past 6 months to review, revise, and recommend these vision, goals, and objectives. First, I do have about at least 7 members of our PAC here in the audience, so I was hoping they could at least stand up just so we can recognize who's been involved in this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So far, they worked very hard. We've had at least 5 meetings and many different conversations. So the vision, I'll just touch quickly on the vision. As you can see, it's very broad and inclusive. I don't think I need to read it. You have it in front of you, and it's up on the screen. But we also have 6 goals that support this vision. These goals address the fact that Clackamas County is incredibly diverse. It addresses the importance of jobs and business, the uniqueness of neighborhoods and communities, the importance of health, safety, and equity. They recognize the fiscal environment and the fact that we need to balance all of this in a very sustainable way. So, Mary, can you flip to the next slide? Yes. Sure. So the 6 goals are sustainable, local business and jobs, livable and local, health and safety, equity, and fiscal responsibility. There are the full set within your packet and the resolution. It has the vision goals, and there's objectives that support each of these goals. These are going to be used as guidance on how we actually assess our transportation system plan and how we move forward into the next steps of the project. And for members of the public, there are copies of the vision goals and objectives right out at the front table if they wanted to see all of the details. So with that, I'll really just open it up for questions at this time.
Okay. I don't know if, Chips, did you want to say anything on before we ask questions of either of you?
I will say that thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak with you. The makeup of the committee, of the public committee for the Transportation System Plan is as diverse as the geography of the county. It involves people from all over the county with diverse points of view, and the discussion of these goals and the visions and the guiding principles were complete, full, and represented, I think, all the points of view. I think it was a great example of being able to work together with a whole lot of diverse views, working together, to come together with the realization that we're all in this county, we're all working on these things together, and I think that was the attitude that we approached this with. And because of that, we would ask you to accept these because a lot of thought and a lot of work has gone into them.
Okay. Questions? Commissioner Bernard.
So at what point do you actually look at the project list? For example, Sunnybrook Extension, at what point will that group be examining that list and removing things, or working with our department to determine whether projects should move forward or be just simply removed, taken off the shelf, dust put away, and move forward?
So that's a great question. As I said, we're just 1/3 of the way through the project. And so what we're involved in doing right now is establishing the existing conditions and looking at future analysis. We have currently started working with our Public Advisory Committee on reviewing the policies that support our different projects. But the actual discussion about projects will start come the end of June. And we'll end up talking about projects first, really talking about the existing conditions at the end of June. There'll be some discussions in July about possible alternatives, and then we get into some final recommendations that end up being in October that we start really, and then after that, we'll take out a series of things to the public. So the whole project, we won't be updating our transportation system plan until the spring of 2013. So there's a series of things that'll happen over the next year.
Follow up. So when Metro, I assume Metro adopts Clackamas County's transportation system plan, and that becomes part of theirs. Is that correct? And at that point, will that, and they decide to accept or not accept our plan based on some criteria?
So the actual process would be that we as a county would adopt our transportation system plan. We work with ODOT and DLCD to make sure that it is in compliance. That's the primary group that we work with. But our work then is reflected in the regional transportation system plan. They are on a regular cycle. I believe they'll be updating their transportation system plan in 2 years, within the next 2 years. So they won't make, Metro does not make an action on our transportation system plan.
Okay, questions? Want to ask yours? Or
Say.
Commissioner Damon?
Can you just talk a little bit about how the Transportation System Plan is coordinating with the work of the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, the C4, which is working on a parallel but connected track around exploring funding options for how we may fund projects that come out of the Transportation System Plan, and how those intersect and how those conversations complement each other?
Definitely, because we actually have a variety of different projects going on in Clackamas County that this project is coordinating with. So specifically, one of the elements that we are looking at, and we ultimately talk about within the Transportation Systems Plan, is how projects will be funded. And we will end up coming up with a project list. We'll look out 20 years into the future and identify which projects we think can be funded with the known funding streams. What the C4, the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, is working on is they're looking at potential new sources of funding for different transportation facilities and work that's being done. We all know that we're in a time of fiscal constraints. We're in a very different fiscal environment than we were 10 years ago when we first adopted, or when we last adopted our plans. So knowing that we don't have the same revenue streams, we're allowing kind of we're having a larger discussion on how we eventually will be able to finance our transportation plan.
If I could just add to that, I think it's very important, because part of the discussion that we have often is the fact that we do have and will have access to very limited resources compared to the past. All the folks on this committee are aware that we're in this together. We have a limited pot to be divided up between rural and urban parts of the county, and we're very focused on trying to do it in a way that all the citizens of the county will best benefit from. We keep that in mind quite often when we talk about this.
Okay, Commissioner
I
Leininger.
think this is great work. I think it's part of some work that really needs to happen in Clackamas County on a couple of levels. As we think about transportation funding, I think the people in the room have heard Cam Gilmore, the Director of Transportation and Development, talk about the fact that just to maintain our, 14,000 miles of county road a year, we have, by his calculation, a $20 million deficit just to maintain the condition of existing roads. In the past, urban renewal money has been used in some measure to support road building, transportation improvements. With the election that happened about 6 months ago, residents made a decision to require a countywide affirmative vote before that can be used in new areas, which I think many people think pretty much takes that funding source off the table. It's about $5 million a year, maybe in the last year, that supported transportation. If you look at Washington County, so that was our one sort of elective, self-imposed way of getting money for transportation besides what we get as of right from the state through gas tax and any grants we can apply for. If you look at Washington County, they actually happen to self-impose about $38 million a year through a variety of sources to help supplement their roads budget, which enables them to compete for federal money in ways that we have a little more trouble doing, because you've got to pony up a local match. And so, I think many of us realize wherever you were on the urban renewal issue, and it's done, and so let's just move on. We need to figure out how we're going to, if we want to fund roads and transportation, we need to figure out how we're going to do it. And I love that this group, the TSP group, is comprised of people of all perspectives. I know that Tom Eskridge, who I think had strong feelings against the urban renewal compromise measure that would have kind of kept that funding tool on the table, he's on this, and he's one of the smartest people I know. And he's on this, and he believes we need to come up with some way to fund transportation. And Chips Janger, perhaps not in the same place as him on the political spectrum, but also one of the smartest people I know, is also committing a ton of time, as are a number of you in the room, to try to figure out, all right, well, what is it that we do want? We've got some ideas of stuff we don't want. What is it that we do want, and what might be a way that our community would feel comfortable paying for it? And that's exactly the conversation we have to have right now. So I appreciate your service. I appreciate the fact that these guys don't just meet those 5 times. It sounds like, you know, there are lots and lots of emails and heartfelt conversations that go back and forth in which they're debating the merits of different approaches. And, you know, if we're going to move forward in our community and get at how we maintain roads and get at how we want to pay for it, it's going to require this kind of broad-based teamwork with everybody's voice participating, and that's what you're doing, and I'm really thankful for it.
I had a question, also a comment, but I know we have many miles of roads in Clackamas County, but I do think it's closer to 1,400.
I'm sorry.
What you
said? I think I said 14,000.
Okay. Ooh, that's a lot.
We could drive
Let
across
the
the
record
continent and back.
stand corrected. Somebody
But
call
those
Jamie
zeros-
Harb the Oregonian.
Those zeros are hard to keep track of. But the other thing is to keep in mind is that maintenance, of course, is a huge piece, and even urban renewal was never any help to that. That was only for capital projects, and maintenance is the biggest piece of the budget that we have to think about. The question I had was actually one that Commissioner Leininger posed about the role in cities, or I don't know if that was your point, but the does this cover cities or coordinate with cities, or to what degree do we have county facilities, county roads that go into our cities that are still under our responsibility, and how does that all coordinate together with the city's TSPs?
Right. So there are about 92 miles of county roads that fall within cities and city jurisdictions. We are working with our partners, our other jurisdictions. For the most part, what we have said have allowed those jurisdictions to do the planning and looking into the future for those roads, because ultimately, as they change and develop, they'll end up developing under a city jurisdiction, and the cities will carry those improvements within their capital improvement plan. There are a series of cities that are currently updating their TSP: Wilsonville, Tualatin, the city of Lake Oswego, the city of Oregon City. We have staff that participate on the technical advisory committees for those different projects. And so we all work closely together, and we also have monthly staff meetings with the different jurisdictions, making sure that our work is all coordinated.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I just wanted to, Commissioner Leininger, you so eloquently thanked the committee and said a number of the things that I wanted to say. And I just really do want to emphasize that this is a committee that is working all the time on this project. They are voluntarily creating additional meetings for themselves and additional opportunities to get smarter about the issues. And it's a lively dialogue and debate by email on a regular basis about articles that they find or research that they're doing. So I mean, it's an incredibly committed group of folks, and I really appreciate that they are very aware of how fiscally constrained we are, and I like that in the goals and in the objectives, you see a lot of attention paid to the need for maintenance, because often these transportation system plans can get caught up in the dreams and the vision and everything that we'd like to have, without being grounded in what are the issues that we need to pay attention to on the roads right now. And we know from the recent survey that we did that that's one of the top priorities in our community, and continues to be a top priority around road maintenance and not necessarily building new things, but taking good care of what we have. And so I appreciate so much that the committee is paying a close attention to that. So thank you.
Okay. With that, I have Tom Civiletti, perhaps would like to comment here.
Chair Leon and members of the board. I'm Tom Civiletti. I live in the unincorporated Oak Grove area. And I'm here in support of the vision, goals, and objectives that you're considering. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on the Transportation Service Plan Public Advisory Committee. The committee has members from both the urban and the rural area of the county, representing various transportation constituencies, and with members from across the political spectrum. I've been very impressed with the level of involvement of committee members in representing the public interest and insisting on having the information that is necessary to take an active role in the transportation plan. The citizens of Clackamas County should be happy to know that they have a committee that is acting as far from a rubber stamp as any advisory committee I've been on. And it is a very important issue. We've got a lot of challenges in the next 20 years to have an effective and efficient transportation system. And I think we have a good start at it. So thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I would go on to ask for a motion on this item to approve this resolution.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the resolution adopting the vision, goals, and objectives for the Clackamas County Transportation System Plan update.
And I'll second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Leininger that we approve the resolution adopting the vision, goals, and objectives for the Clackamas County Transportation System Plan update. Is there any further discussion? Apparently not. We're all discussed out on it. So with that, I will just reiterate my thanks to everyone who's participating in this process, and ask all those in favor to signify, if you're in favor, to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it passes 4-0, and that is unanimous. And thank you again, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the consent agenda, and I will ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title only.
Okay, under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval to apply for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration Offenders Reentry Program Fiscal Year 2012 Competitive Grant. A board order approving the Mental Health Director designee to authorize a custody hold under ORS 426.233. Approval of a renewal grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, supportive housing programs for the Ready-to-Rent Permanent Housing Solutions Program for the purpose of reducing barriers to access permanent housing for homeless participants. Approval of a renewal grant agreement from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, supportive housing programs for the Hope Leasing Program for the purpose of providing permanent housing. Approval of a renewal grant agreement from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Supportive Housing Program for the Jackson Place Program for the purposes of providing transitional housing for the homeless. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, approval of Amendment Number 2 to the Supplement Project Agreement Number 25070 with Oregon Department of Transportation for the Barlow Road, Zimmerman Road intersection. Approval of Amendment Number 3 to an intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Department of Transportation for Clackamas County OTIA 3 local agency bridges. Under Finance, a board order creating a discretionary fund account for the Clackamas County Community Health Center Stone Clinic. And under Elected Officials, we have approval of previous business meeting minutes, and that concludes the consent agenda.
I would consider a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Chair Lehan, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Leininger and seconded by Commissioner Bernard that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. passes 4-0, which is unanimous. And I will remind people that the screen that you see above is also on the TV screen, and it is a picture of our website where you can go and click on these items if you want any more information about any of these consent agenda items that we just read by title only. So that brings us to citizen communication. This is an opportunity to address the board on items that are not on the agenda, or items that are on the agenda but not scheduled for public comment. I don't know what that would be, but I guess it would be take your child to work. This portion of the agenda is limited to items of county business for the board as a whole to consider and should not be of a personal nature. If you wish to speak, you should fill out a blue card, give it to our clerk. Please be prepared to speak when your name is called and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Comments should be respectful and courteous to all, which we always try to be, and particularly when we have young people in the audience with us today. And I will call up, since I have a number of cards, I will call up 2 at a time, and then we'll have 2 on deck. And the first 2 are Melissa Earlbaum and Susie Jeanette, I believe, are the first 2 up. And then I have Mark Gambia and Eugene Schoenheit on deck. That's clear. I'll try to keep these straight.
She says I can go first.
Oh.
So thank you very much. I'm Susie Jeanette. I am a voting Clackamas County citizen, but I'm also on the board of Clackamas Women's Services, and I'm here today primarily to thank you for all of the support that you have shown CWS and our effort to end violence in domestic settings, especially your move to support us on March 20th. So I want to thank you for that support. While we work really hard to fundraise and develop our own sources of funding, the funding from Clackamas County is vital for our survival and, of course, for the survivors of domestic violence. So I really want to say that I appreciate this. We will continue our efforts on the board and through the volunteer organization that we have, but in generating more funds. But boy, what you do here is incredible, and your support is, we couldn't do it without you, so I really appreciate that. On a personal note, my sister is a survivor, and she has 3 children in the house when this happened, and so their safety was definitely endangered. And she was an attorney. She's a gainfully employed attorney who was able to take the resources that she had and call upon resources that she had and get herself out of that situation. I am not confident that many people in the county in their current situation have that capacity and have those capabilities. And so what you are doing is helping and enabling us to provide those services to people who are less better off than my sister, who still suffers and her children still suffer from these events. It is an ongoing process, and again, thank you for all of your support, and I hope that you can continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa Earlbaum, the Executive Director for Clackamas Women's Services and a Westland community resident. And I'm here today also to echo thank you and gratitude to all of you. I've had the honor of speaking with each of you, as well as Commissioner Savaz in the last couple weeks, and I just wanted to say publicly that I appreciate the renewed and continued commitment to look at how we can best serve survivors in our community. And I wanted to publicly thank your leadership in the Health, Housing, and Human Services Office of Cindy Becker and Steve Wheeler and others. I feel like we've gotten a really strong response and that the conversation is continuing, so I wanted to publicly say thank you for that.
Thank you. Next up are Mark Gambia and Eugene Schoenheit, and then I have Peter Toll and Janet Schoenheit on deck.
Okay, I guess I'm going first here. Eugene Schoenheit, my address is on record, and I came here to talk about 2 subjects today, but the first one I'd like to talk about is actually me. I served on service CCSD Advisory Board for 3 years. I served 2 years on the CCSD-1 Budget Committee. Over this 3-year period, I had attended about 100 meetings, work sessions, technical meetings, and just whatever, was basically given to us. I want to make a point here that in this period, I only missed one business meeting in 3 years. And I wasn't paid to be there. I was there because it was important to the county. And what I'd like to say is, you're paid as commissioners to be, commissioners. And being part of this is, attending this meeting. And it's nice that 4 of you have shown up today, but, every time I come down here, there's either 1 or 2 or, 1 or 2, and as in the last meeting, 3 were missing at the points. And it's just, you need to do a better job of that, of showing up. As far as your evening meeting schedule, I have a couple suggestions. The public wants to attend your meetings. To get the maximum exposure and convenience for people to attend, people have, schedules, they work, and they have to get down here. 5:30 is really not a good time. 7 o'clock is actually a better time. And I heard that you made a comment that, it's going to cost you extra money. Well, the suggestion for that is simply start your, the staff that's included, the staff that has to work with you in this meeting, just start them 4 hours later on Thursday. And that way, you don't have an expense. It's pretty simple. This is, Milwaukee does their meetings at night, and Mr. Bernard, you know that, and, you maybe should use Milwaukee as an example. Thank you.
Okay.
Mark Gamba, 10414 Southeast 24th Avenue, Milwaukee. I'd like to take a moment of your time to offer a bigger perspective on one of the questions that you face. In America, the true patriots have sweat, bled, and died to make America a better place for their children, their neighbors, and for people they would never even know. The true patriots have worked tirelessly, risked their treasure and even their lives in order to create a brighter future for America. That's what a true patriot does. They are selfless in the pursuit of a better life for their fellow countrymen now and tomorrow. The true patriots protected and fought for this country. The true patriots built this country. They built canals and bridges, skyscrapers and tunnels. The true patriots sweat, bled, and died building the infrastructure for the future. The true patriots built highways and railroads they would never ride because they knew that it was important to the future of their country. The true patriots built and continue to build those things their fellow countrymen need now and will need even more in the future. That is who the true patriots are, and that is what true patriots do. So what do you call people who are trying to stop such things? What do you call people who are trying to stop the building of America out of greed, sloth, and ignorance? Certainly not patriots. What are they? The true patriots are building the infrastructure for the future right now. They are building a bridge across the Willamette and a rail service to our county. I have to ask you, commissioners, do you stand with the true patriots or do you obstruct them? Will you honor your agreement to invest in our future, or will you be bullied by the loud and the ignorant? I guess this fall we'll learn whether Clackamas County is filled with true patriots or their despicable opposite.
Okay. The next up are
Thank you.
Peter. Thank you. Peter Toll and Janet Schoenheit. And on deck, I have Yvonne Lazarus and Steve Amick. Stephen Amick.
Hello.
I'm Janet Schoenheit. You have my address on record. Commissioners, the commission has stated that you want us citizens who testify at your hearings to respect you, and I agree that citizens should respect your office. That is the right thing to do, but how can Richard Langdon respect Commissioner Bernard when Commissioner Bernard doesn't respect him? About a month ago, after a BCC hearing, Commissioner Bernard confronted Mr. Langdon in this hearing room at the door and called Mr. Langdon a effing A. This shows us that Commissioner Bernard does not show respect for citizens. The incident occurred after the camera was off, but it was witnessed by another citizen, which I perhaps shouldn't name. Commissioner Bernard should resign his position as commissioner, as he does not respect us, and he makes it impossible for us to respect him. How can citizens respect a commissioner who acts like that? The election is coming soon, and I would ask the voters to consider voting for Commissioner Savas, Tootie Smith, and Jeff Caton for commissioner, as I endorse them, and I know personally things about them that show me that they will work for all of us and warrant our respect, as you should. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
morning. My name is Peter Toll. I'm a resident of West Lynn, 23373 Johnson Road for 22 years, almost 23. I'm here to offer some congratulations, which is unusual for people who hold public office to be congratulated for their work. The Oregon legislature has an approval rating of 13%. The Congress has an approval rating of 7%. That you people have been able to secure a 75% favorable rating from the people you serve is a credit to you, and I want to thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, the next two up are Yvonne Lazarus and Stephen Amick. And on deck, I have David Jorling and Les Poole.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm Yvonne Lazarus, and you have me on file. I'm here to speak today, which will be a big surprise to you guys, about drugs. I live across from the Oak Grove grade school, and last week, something very appalling happened. The interagency SWAT Washington County Tactical Negotiations Team woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I thought it was a shotgun going off. I live on Torbank. This happened on Courtney, and it was like it was in my backyard. They arrested 6 people. 5 of them were illegal aliens, and I have their names down here, but I'm not going to go into that. One of them evidently was not held on being illegal aliens. He evidently had a green card, or I don't know, because I haven't looked into it, but I'm going to look into it. They charged them with delivering meth within 1,000 feet of a school. Now, the apartment complex the back of it, I can see it from my complex. The back of it faces right onto the track of that school. Those people could walk right out their back door and they're on school property. I cannot understand how this could happen. And it's happening all over the United States. I am not prejudiced, but I'm going to tell you something. I find it extremely insulting to me as an American that these people come in, they get sent home, and they come right back across the border. I don't know what to do about it, but I'm going to find out what to do about it. This is going to be the next thing that you people are going to see me on. It is so very, very wrong that they get their hands slapped and that our social services are protecting them. You better know, I am very much behind the Arizona laws. And you know what's going on there. The other thing I'm going to speak on right now is also the meetings. I believe that you should have the meetings on Thursday night. The people who work, they work just like you do, and I know you're tired. We all need to be able to not have such stringent time to talk to you. We need to have a Thursday night where your work is done other than talking to the people. Thank you.
That's our intention, to do that on, when we move to a Thursday night meeting.
But not just one meeting out of the month. I'm talking every Thursday night.
Well, we'll work it out as we go, and I'm sure it will evolve depending on what the need is. Mr. Amick.
Good morning, Commissioners. And I'd like to reiterate my congratulations for your approval rating, which I believe is understated, if anything. I thank you for your service. I think that true patriots are people like yourselves who do public service in the way that you do. I'm here to talk pretty generally about support for light rail. It's been my pleasure and my privilege to have friends and relatives in other countries and to be able to visit them in places like England, Italy, and others who have good rail systems and who have the transportation capability to bring business people and tourists to their areas, even into their rural areas. And I am a rural resident of Clackamas County, and so the rural concerns are my concerns. If we have a really good matrix of transportation systems, a mix of all different kinds of transportation modalities, including light rail, including buses, including private taxi services, private automobiles and trucks, we can increase I believe it was a few years ago, $300 million that Clackamas County brings in tourist dollars annually by hundreds of millions of dollars more. And I think that's important not only for its dollar value, but for the cultural value of exchanging ideas and interacting with people from other places and other cultures. And I think that's a two-way street. I think they learn from us and we learn from them. So I would just like to say very generally, I can't claim to be an expert on light rail or about funding mechanisms or about the plans that have been made for extending light rail. I try to keep up with the news accounts, but more generally, I just want to say I hope you do everything you possibly can to increase the availability of inexpensive light rail systems. And that's another thing. I want to see this being tax funded. I don't want to see a system that's so expensive that only people of means can afford to use it. I want to see people being able to move freely about the county in and out of existing, within and among the counties in general in the metropolitan area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next two I have are David Jorling and Les Poole, and on deck are David Gray and Bob Shannon.
Hello, my name is Dave Jorling. I'm a resident of Lake Oswego, living at 684 9th Street in downtown Lake Oswego. I testified here 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to articulate a couple more points that I wanted to make at that time, but time constraints pursued me. I presented your clerk with a op-ed piece that I have submitted to the Oregonian. And the main point of the op-ed piece is that the extraordinary cost and subsidies that are spent on the automobile. And you can go through the article to see what that amounts to. But I just want to highlight a couple things from the article. According to the Federal Highway Administration, construction and to build a lane on an existing highway for 1 mile costs between $5.8 million and $15.4 million. That's 1 mile of one lane. An additional lane for an additional lane, and from $3.1 million to $19.5 million per lane mile for new highways. Other things that come to mind is that we cannot sustain our level of automobile use, and there will be many Americans who will not be able to use their cars as much, and some of us will not be able to afford to use them at all. We cannot sustain the current use of our automobiles. Alternatives must be built. But as columnist George Will wrote, America is changing from a nation that celebrated getting things done to a nation that celebrates people and groups who prevent things from getting done. In Clackamas County, we have a vocal group of obstructionists, significantly funded by an industrialist from Nevada, the Americans for Prosperity headquartered in Arlington, Virginia, and some wealthy citizens of an unincorporated enclave in Dunthorpe and Riverdale who are stopping projects from being done. They will soon spread, apparently, their opposition to Washington County so that it can join Clackamas County in a race to the bottom. We must reject these obstructionists and move forward with transit alternatives for many of the reasons that were just explained by the person that talked before. Our economic health depends upon it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Les Poole. Good morning, Josie. I'm glad you stuck around. You're going to get a civics lesson. Goal 1, does anyone in this room know what Goal 1 is? Mm-hmm. It's citizen participation. At the start of this meeting, Chair Lehan, who controls the agenda, let us know that they're going to make some changes in citizen participation and that they're going to make things more efficient and that we're going to change the meetings. None of what I'm hearing is a response to reasonable questions and respect for us. We have asked you very simply, regardless of what side of an issue that anyone is on, that you change the meeting times. I don't care if you raise my taxes 5 cents per 1,000. Change the meeting times to the evenings. Allow citizen communication to actually occur rather than making an obvious attempt to stymie it. I'm offended, Chair Lehan. You know how hard you got to work to offend me? Well, you got there. I believe the timing of this change, this proposed evolving change, I truly believe that it's the reactions from someone who isn't getting the real message. In Damascus, they have citizen communication, and whenever there's a large crowd, which is, I believe, what's being feared, they continue citizen communication at the end of the meeting. There's absolutely no reason to have one meeting a month on Thursday and turn it into what will probably evolve into different interest groups and different folks showing up and all talking at once. Thanks to Commissioner Savas, we already have a meeting once a month that maybe could be twice a month. But it is time that we quit being ignored. I favor streetcars. I favor alternative transportation. I don't favor the county and the taxpayers being forced to spend upwards of $200 million to extend the light rail beyond Milwaukee so that we receive the negatives. Generic support for light rail has nothing to do with the county's 25 million and what we get for it. If I had more time, I would continue, but I'll end by saying I believe that you agree with everything Chair Lehan is saying, Mr. Bernard, and I believe based on denying free speech rights and what I've seen, it really is time for you to resign, sir. Thank you.
The next two I have up are David Gray and Bob Shannon, and on deck are Susan Hanson and Paul Edgar.
Okay. I'm David Gray. I live on River Forest Lane in Oak Grove. I have very recently become aware of and interested in the proposal to extend the TriMet Orange Line into Milwaukee and Oak Grove. And my first reaction was, oh, hey, that sounds like a good idea. And then I became aware of some very vocal opposition, and we just heard another sample of that. And I've been trying to understand the basis of that opposition, and my interpretation is it's maybe nostalgia is part of it. Let's keep Oak Grove the way it's always been. Or fear that the line will bring in undesirables, criminal types. Well, on the first point, if you read the Metro's information on population projections, there's supposed to be a very big population expansion, which is bound to affect Clackamas County and, of course, Oak Grove. So I think the light rail is part of a smart way of channeling that population growth in a good direction rather than a haphazard way. The fear part, that was pretty much effectively argued against by several law enforcement officials who appeared at the Oak Grove Community Council several months ago. Now, let's get to the cost part of it. And now I'm just talking about the county's $25 million. Sounds like a lot of money, and of course it is, but if the county issues a bond and has to pay that bond off in 25 years or so, the annual cost would be a tiny fraction of the total county budget. So to my way of thinking, that kind of shoots down the financial argument against the project, unless you just think that, why should we spend a single dollar on this project? And this brings me to the urban renewal measure that was mentioned several minutes ago, which I voted against, but we have it now. And I know it's an old story, but I just have to say that I think requiring every voter in the county to vote for any project in the county is a terrible way for the county to run its business. Suppose a project is proposed for Canby. Well, I don't live anywhere near Canby. I don't care about Canby as long as 99E is open and I can drive through it at my convenience. Oh, no. Can I have another 3 minutes, please?
Well, you can always come back next week.
Let me just have one last sentence. I saw a big billboard next to 205 complaining about Portland creep. We are lucky to live so close to a wonderful city like Portland. All its cultural advantages, great restaurants. I am very pleased. I live in a great place, Oak Grove, but I'm very fortunate. We live in close to Portland. We have an even more convenient way to get back and forth between my house and Portland. I think that's great.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bob Shannon, Damascus, Oregon. I got several issues. Everybody's in favor of this light rail, but they don't know where the funding's come from. And, well, the payroll tax, all these business, everyone I talked to don't like it. I mentioned it before, but I won't go on with it that much. But the costs in the federal like I said before, doesn't have the funding. They're broke. Everybody thinks the federal's gonna come through, and they're not. I don't see how they can, unless they borrow from China or Japan, I guess. Well, anyway, let's see, I'm not gonna talk much about Vogel Road. They promised me they would repave it here this summer, but I called the lady that's in the pothole division in the county here, and she told me that they only have 43 people working in fixing potholes. Well, for the whole county, I guess. And anyway, they come out one day on Foster Road, and they had some bad ones. And these guys, two of them in a truck, and they threw the asphalt down, but they didn't tamp it in. They just threw it down. So that ain't gonna last. That kind of work isn't gonna last. I mean, that's ridiculous. They ought to have somebody, should have a roller out there and roll it into and oil in there so it'll stay, you know. My road is just full of potholes. Hell, it's been 94 since they've done anything with the damn thing. Okay, let's see how much time have we got. Let's see. Pardon? Oh, yeah. I think these people that come in here and testify before the commissioners, that one person there, haven't got anything against them, take their hat off when they're before these commissioners here. I don't think that's right. And I know there's one back there, and I think they're plants for this light rail, TriMet. I believe they are. They seem to be all 100% for it, and that's nonsense. Well, that's their opinion, but I mean, it's something we can't afford, and I don't know why people are pushing it so damn hard. I mean, we got all this roads in Clackamas County that it needs to be fixed, and they want to pour all this millions of dollars into this project. And I know, let's see here, Charlotte and they're resigning or their term's up, but maybe the rest, except Paul, should resign, for crying out loud. I mean, I don't know, you're not doing what we're supposed to do, and I don't know why you don't get this evening meeting going, you know. Well, I got other questions, but I guess, well, that metro, as far as I'm concerned, it's an inner city government, and it shouldn't have been ever started, and I don't know why we want to get tied up with those metro people. I mean, that's just, I don't know, a good example is they had a car show last weekend over at the Expo Center, and they brought in another group, and that place is so crowded anyway. They only have it once a year, and that was a real mess. And that's Metro. They steered away from the Rose Garden over there. That's the way they operate.
Okay, thank you.
I am not a TriMet plant.
Oh, I didn't think you were.
Next up are Susan Hanson and Paul Edgar, and on deck are Jim Sanders and Chips Janger.
Susan Hanson, P.O. Box 50, Molalla, Oregon. Commissioners, thanks for the opportunity to state my concerns about the attempt by a vocal minority to stop our important Clackamas County Light Rail project. Years of contracts have been signed. The future success for funding county transportation rests on the BBC to uphold legally binding contracts. I recently attended 2 conferences that validated the need for multimodal transit. Energy expert Charlie Stevens explained that it is a myth that there will be abundant, cheap fossil fuel in the future. Global warming is upon us. Conservation and transit other than conventional cars will increasingly be necessary and welcome. Noted urban planner Michael Friedman explained at Metro that the old urban planning model was based on a manufacturing economy that segregated work, retail, and residential, and forced us to drive everywhere. That model is rapidly changing as an economy based on a marketplace of ideas means that citizens seek urban village environments where they can live, shop, and work without driving. Essential to the urban village model will be transit choices. Reports show that younger Americans are far less enamored of car ownerships than older generations. They will increasingly be the residents of the urban core who will most need multimodal choices. Last week, a friend and I fought our way from rural Molalla to northeast Portland on I-205 through a blinding rainstorm and dangerous bumper-to-bumper traffic to attend the planning lecture. Ironically, we discussed what a better trip we would have enjoyed if we could have left our car at Park Place and taken light rail directly to the Metro building on Northeast Grand. Some of my South County neighbors might not yet understand the benefits, but I see how helpful light rail will be as I grow older and lose confidence driving in urban traffic. I want to hop on light rail to safely enjoy medical, retail, and entertainment in Metro. Students countywide need fast and affordable transit choices to reach diverse educational resources. Workers need to forego rush hour gridlock, and we need to curtail greenhouse gas. It's clear that rapid social and economic changes are upon us. Change is obviously difficult for a small segment of our society to accept. We can't honor the backward, isolationist model a vocal minority promotes. Thank you for protecting Clackamas County's reputation as an ethical government that honors contracts. Thanks for being a government that promotes sustainable planning, multimodal transportation, conservation, respect for the environment, and smart growth. And thanks most of all for being a government that consistently promotes robust citizen involvement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Paul Edgar. I'm involved into the Citizens Advisory Committee in Transportation, and I happen to be an Urban Renewal Commissioner in Oregon City. But I'm really a citizen here before you asking your help. One of the issues that's important to me is handicapped and disabled. We have a problem in downtown Oregon City. They put together a transportation parking plan, and they didn't mention one place disabled in it. And I took it to the Oregon City Transportation Committee, and they're going to review it. But I went to the Clackamas County Courthouse, and I said, hey, I'd like to get some people from there to help participate, because we have real problems getting people to the courthouse. They're eliminating disabled parking spots all and down through Main Street. They're now all of a sudden decided to start charging people to park at meters, unlike any city in Metro Oregon. So these people that come into Oregon City that have to go to the courthouse now find themselves put back against the wall. If you've got a handicap, they say, well, park 5 blocks away. Well, if I've got a handicap and it's severe, 5 blocks away means I can't get there. Or they say, if you want to park up close, plug your meter, but when you come back out, you got to move your car. You can only park in the short-term meters. And it all just doesn't make sense. But what really happens is that people come away from Oregon City trying to do county business, trying to get to the county with negative impressions. They're negative against Clackamas County, they're negative against Oregon City, and it's just a lack of tolerance of people with disabilities and handicaps. So my request of you is to jump into this thing. One of the solutions I perceive is that we need to partner with Clackamas County. Maybe we need to build a parking structure into downtown Oregon City, but that needs to be vetted properly, but we need your participation. And if we do that, we only have 159 parking spots in historic core of downtown Oregon City. 7,000 approximate incidents of people coming and going from the courthouse occur every week. So factor that against 159 on-street parking spots. We should be buying up some of these parking spots, parking lots that are now private, or do something. But we've got to be pragmatic about this. And it requires people like yourself stepping up, establishing communications with the leadership. But right now, this type of problem we've had going on has been adjudicated by this parking study like, oh, it's perfectly okay. Well, it's okay to some people, but if you've got a handicap or you're disabled, it doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Okay.
We need your help.
This is the first I've been aware of this issue with disabled parking in downtown Oregon City. So I'd like to, we'll follow up and get more information from you or Oregon City.
Yeah,
sure.
I'd be very happy to help shed any light on it, to participate in any way that you'd like to do it. I want to do it through the channels. I want to do it pragmatically and honestly, but what we're doing right now, the system has turned on people and it in a manner that's just unacceptable.
Okay. I'll flag your card and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
The next two up are Jim Sanders and Chip Janger, and on deck are William Ware and Tom Civiletti.
Good morning. Nice to see all the seats are filled. Even got +1 today. That's very nice. I wasn't quite sure how to start this, but it was figured out for me. The person that came up here and called over 70% of Clackamas County, including myself, unpatriotic, was a personal slam to my character, and I firmly believe it's a personal slam to everybody that has served our nation, our policemen, our firemen, and anybody that has taken the oath, and I demand an apology for myself and all of those people. First of all, this is how I was going to start. I don't quite understand the rules. You say we can't ask questions during citizen comments because when we do, you just sit there. But you can ask any question you want anytime. What if we sit there? Well, then we're out of order. It cannot be both ways. So my question to you is, which is it? Is it a question and answer or not? Hey, whoa, that's not a question. I don't want to be out of order. Hold on. I just don't understand why it's taking so long to get night meetings. How hard can it be? Pick a place, pick a time, and announce it. I just don't get it. However, I understand it does take money, but you don't have any problem spending our money, especially foolishly. I am extremely, and I also am glad that citizen communication is going to be moved early, because when we sit around to stuff that does not pertain to us, those people just leave, and it's really a waste of time. And I also would like to address the people that say that the anti-light rail folks are late to the party. This is absurd. All light rail lines have been voted down at least twice. There's been a mayor recalled. There's been 2 city councilmen recalled. I firmly believe that this wouldn't even be a discussion if TriMet hadn't spent our taxpayers' money, and lots of it, and lobbied for legislation in Salem to get the vote taken away from the people. They knew that it would never pass. And it's mind-boggling to me when over 70% of the people do not want something and it is forced down our throats. Commissioner Bernard is certainly no stranger to this situation. You were involved with the Milwaukee Council and now the Clackamas County Commission. I firmly believe that there is a conflict of interest with you, sir. When you look at the Milwaukee plan, it is obvious. For you, there are 3 R's, and they're not read and write and arithmetic. They are recuse, resign, and recall. You have escaped the first one, so pick one of the other 2. Chair Lehan, when you left your seat when a constituent was involved in his First Amendment right, you said you were going to the bathroom without recessing the meeting. That was the most disgusting, disrespectful, basically belligerent bullying act I have ever seen in a public forum. I feel that you owe Mr. Langdon and the people of Clackamas County an apology. Thank you.
Chips.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Chips Janger, again, from Oak Grove. I decided to come up again today because I wanted to tell you about an incident last night. And I wrote on the blue card that I wanted to speak about the Park Avenue Station. At the Oak Grove CPO meeting last night, we had quite a turnout because we had a lot of young kids there who came up to introduce a wonderful art project for the trolley trail. And the trolley trail is a very big part of what's going on in Oak Grove, as you guys know. One of the things that happened at the CPO meeting last night is there was an introduction and a discussion of a whole new approach to what could happen to McLaughlin Boulevard around the light rail station. And part of that discussion was the presentation of a historical perspective of Oak Grove, talking about what happened when the trolley trail got to Oak Grove, when the trolley got to Oak Grove, how it became a real thriving community, how it became a wonderful community. And there were lots of pictures that we had, really beautiful pictures by the historian of Oak Grove, showing how the community thrived with its connection, using the trolley trail to connect to Portland. One of the things that we're really excited about is the fact that that's going to happen again with light rail. We're going to have probably one of the most beautiful stations in the country. Our connection in Oak Grove to the wonderful light rail community that connects all of these cities around our metropolitan area is something that's going to be such a complete asset and boon to the Oak Grove community. I wanted to thank you guys for your continued support in the midst of the difficulty that you have to support the importance of light rail for the future of our kids who are here today speaking to you. Those are the people who are going to really appreciate it, in the future. This is a really, really important aspect of our community. I know it's difficult for you guys. You have a lot more support than you think, certainly in our community, because most of the community doesn't come here and speak. But believe me, there's terrific support for this, for the station that we have, for the entire light rail, and for the financial support that you're putting in that will be considered in the future to be probably the greatest bargain that this county has ever done, to spend $25 million to connect to a multi-billion-dollar light rail system that will connect them anywhere on the West Coast and anywhere in the metropolitan area. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. The next two I have are Tom Civiletti and William Ware. I don't know if I called them in that order or not. And after that, on deck, I have Mac Woods and Craig Wilcox.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bill Ware, Damascus, Oregon. My address is on file. What I'd like to talk about is how subjective First Amendment freedom of rights can be interpreted, even though it's clearly written in the Constitution. Light rail advocate to the north, Mayor Adams, interpreted this to mean that people could assemble for weeks, shouting, screaming, blocking commerce, destroying public and private property. He stood up and defended the right of assembly and free speech with millions of dollars of taxpayer money. Now, Commissioner Bernard, on the other hand, has a different interpretation and a shorter fuse. He had Mr. Langdon frog marched out of the building by a sheriff when Mr. Langdon was merely sitting after stating, "My silence is my testimony." Mr. Langdon wasn't profane. He wasn't running around the room chanting, screaming in people's faces, knocking over chairs before being tackled by a sheriff. Mr. Langdon was merely quietly sitting. His testimony, silence. Now, enough time has passed for reflection on this, and I think that it's really time for Commissioner Bernard to offer a profuse apology to Mr. Langdon, to the fellow counselors, and the citizens of Clackamas County for this situation that really got out of hand. I think, Commissioner Bernard, if you can't do this, you should offer your resignation as your final apology. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm Tom Civiletti, and I live in unincorporated Clackamas County. And I would like to to thank the Board of County Commissioners for your continued support for the Orange Line light rail coming to Clackamas County. The light rail will be crucial infrastructure to serve Clackamas County for the next century. I look forward to working with creative public-private partnerships to develop Oak Grove economically and to increase our quality of life in accordance with the McLaughlin Area Plan, which citizens of Clackamas County have spent several years developing, and which calls for the kind of development that I think will really change the nature of the McLaughlin area and make it a great asset for the county as a whole, for the metropolitan area, and particularly for those of us who live in the neighborhoods of Oak Grove. And who knows, perhaps someday we'll get our game together and form a city. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Next up are Mac Woods and Craig Wilcox, and on deck I have Mariana Moore and Roxanne Ross.
Clackamas County Commissioners, you know me very well, probably better than you like. But today I'm talking to the working people, the property owners out in the county. Good morning. I have before me, for you, voters, property owners, that you can learn how to vote. These ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure their intentions to do a good job, but there might be someone that could do it better. Election is coming on. You can pick up one of these voters' guides. I've given out hundreds of them already to the senior centers, care facilities. You have the right to vote. It only costs you a stamp to register to vote because you couldn't afford to pay your taxes where you're living. We know the reason behind all of that. That can change. It's time for change. I'm just one public servant giving you in the county a way that you can learn what's going on right here in this room. It's called a little DVD. I buy them here. The first one's $10. After that, they charge you $3. I've discovered a way I can go and get them made up for 50 cents each. And I'm giving them to the care centers. I'm giving them to churches. I'm giving them to civic groups, free to you. You can see it at your own leisure. You can learn who these ladies and gentlemen are, what they're voting on. You can see them, hear them, know them, watch them vote as they did this morning, how they spend your money, what they do for you, ladies and gentlemen, or not. You can see it firsthand, learn who they are, and I'm happy to provide you this vital information that you can get without having to take off work. I salute to you, the public out there, voters, that you can do your thing and eliminate the mess and the cost that they're costing you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Craig Wilcox, and I sat before the board in January in regards to an issue that I have with a new neighbor in across the road from where I live. I live on a county road, and they did not do any surveys prior to any construction. They put 2 logging roads on my property, cut down my fir trees, and they put their well on my property. In December, we had established an easement. They provided me with an easement agreement, and the last 2 paragraphs on that easement is that I would not hold them liable for any damage that they did to my property, and I chose not to endorse that easement agreement. I've been in direct communication with county council. He spoke with my neighbors. He's also taken the time to speak with their attorneys, and to this day we don't have any resolve. Clackamas County, prior to 1960, had approximately 87 to 90 different road districts, and each district had their own supervisor, in which would report to the Department of Transportation. The road that I'm on changed its footprint. And prior to that change of footprint, the traffic went around my southwest corner. As the buggy, and the cars got faster, they rounded the corner. In the early 60s, this radius was paved, which left a triangle on my southwest corner. Currently, there still is a public right-of-way that is still prevalent today. The county will vacate that right-of-way if my neighbor and myself come to an agreement for an easement, which will give them easement to their well. So that way they won't have to drill a new well. I'm willing to provide that for them. There is a left and right footprint that they will have in case their well has futuristic damage. I'm willing to provide that to them. I've been in direct communication with my neighbor, asking him to find a resolve. It would be a win-win situation. In his front yard, he has 20 feet of this public right-of-way, which means that anyone that chooses to can put up a picnic bench and have a function in their front yard. I've offered him that if we were to come to an agreement that this wouldn't be, this would allow him to avoid such a situation. In the ORS statutes, 366.300, it clearly states that the county has every right to vacate a right-of-way or a portion of a right-of-way that has not been used, whereas the footprint of the road that was traveled has now changed its location. And I'm asking that the board approve the county council to go ahead and move on this ORS statute, allowing me to have my property back and allowing my neighbor to completely have full right to the use of the well.
Okay.
I believe that's a win-win situation.
Sounds like a reasonable request. I just, 3 minutes is not
You're
enough,
absolutely
not
right.
enough time, but we will talk to staff and county council.
I've also Steve confronted me prior to this meeting at 10 o'clock, and he said again that he's more than willing to speak with me after the meeting, and I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that would be good. We
Yes,
won't
ma'am.
have this kind of time constraint.
Just wonder if we get a report back maybe soon on what the status is on this.
Whenever you're ready, Commissioner.
Okay.
We'll
Thanks
look
for
at
your
it.
time.
Thank you,
Appreciate that.
and thank you for coming in. The next ones I have up are Mariana Moore and Roxanne Ross, and on deck is Rose Johnson.
Are we ready? Good morning, Commissioners. And I wanted to especially thank Jamie's little girl for coming. I don't know your name, but I'm glad to see you here. I believe you've been a 4-H'er, and is that correct?
No, she
No,
wasn't. No.
not. But you have animals and things at your place. And I was involved with that. I think it's a great program, and it's been going for 100 years. So you might want to add that to your agenda. Anyway, I come with things that I think I'm going to say, and then the meeting goes on, and I think, oh, well, I should say something about that. And one of the things with this first thing that was entered, number 16 on the first page, it says their objectives are to support motorized and non-motorized transportation projects that use public resources cost effectively. That's the point that I think everyone is missing. And we just had someone that said we need to move into the next century with this light rail. It's going to be wonderful. And he talked about the history of the streetcar, which is my history. The old streetcar stopped along the way. You could get on. It was fast. It was cheap. It worked. That's 19th century transportation that was effective and cost-effective. And the new way that people are doing things is, in my mind, just craziness. Along the way, I met a lady last week who said she records these, invites her friends in, and they watch. So I feel like I'm representing those that can't be here because they do watch and they hear what people are asking for, but they never hear an answer. We don't hear an answer, they don't hear an answer. And the way you have things set up, if we want an answer, we do it in writing, we get back an answer in writing. We don't know the answers to other people's problems, and the people out there don't ever see an answer to the problems. Mr. Shannon was just here. I've been coming about a year, a little over a year. Mr. Shannon's been coming all that time, and Richard Langton was also coming for a year to try to get an answer to their problems, and they don't get them, and it's very frustrating. I was here one day when Mr. Bernard came down after the meeting and accosted Mr. Landon. And at the time he was thrown out, unfortunately, the TV went off. And so you didn't get to see the whole, what went on that day before he was removed. And that's unfortunate because I think people had a right to see that too. Some of the other things that, oh dear. All right, I guess I want to support the evening meetings. And I think that it should be priority for everyone to be here. And when you have things that get set up in the afternoon, it obviously isn't working. And you keep saying we're going to do it, but we want an answer for when. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Roxanne Ross, and I live at 3075 Southwest 15th Court in Gresham, which is quite a long ways away. But I wanted to come and talk to you about ICLEI, which is the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. They changed their name to ICLEI Lands for Sustainability or something like that. But Clackamas County is a member of ICLEI. Now, the ICLEI website, a little over a year ago, it was talking about how they had their 600th city in ICLEI, USA. And there was a bit of hoopla when they got the 600th city. You'll see now that it's 550 cities. Why are cities pulling out of ICLEI and counties pulling out of ICLEI? It's because of the enormous cost for carbon counting pet projects. Now, we just heard earlier about how you wished you had more money for roads. Roads is an essential service for the county, and a lot of these carbon counting programs that come through your ICLEI involvement are not essential services. And ICLEI is horribly expensive. So if you're a regional government, the annual dues are based on the size of your operating budget. This is according to the ICLEI website. A little over a year ago, I had difficulty finding an updated one, so I don't know if it's increased or decreased. But for a budget over $10 million, the operating dues were $9,500, which is pretty expensive. But then the ICLEI programs that they sell you are even more. You'll see in the May 2009 consent agenda for the city of Portland, they spent $25,000 on ICLEI software. But the real cost is the squelching of jobs that happens and the lost revenue from the economic constraints that are as a result of the programs that ICLEI supports. Now, the city of Eugene is an ICLEI city, and it was about a year ago, came up to the county, did they want to join ICLEI? And they had a hearing, and people brought the real costs of what it had cost the city, not the cost of the lot from the economic squelching, but the actual money paid. And the county decided not to go with ICLEI. It's that expensive that even Lane County would not go for ICLEI. And yet Clackamas County is a member of ICLEI. And so I would really urge Clackamas County to dump ICLEI. Now, I live in Gresham, and we have a neighborhood that is 1/6 of our city. It's called Rockwood. It's 1/6 of our city, but it's 80% of our police calls. And it's due to the blue line, which is these light rail lines are like straight out of ICLEI. And that's what you get.
Good night.
I'd like to tell you more about that. I'll have to come back.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but I did want to follow up that this was brought up several business meetings ago, and I was unfamiliar with the organization. So I did some research and looked up the organization as well. And we have decided to not continue as members of ICLEI. So I just wanted to let you know that, just to follow up.
And the dues were nothing like that.
I don't recall the dues being that high.
They were about 3,000?
Yeah.
They were about 3,000, but we were the only county, we were the only county in the state that was a member. So, but anyway, I just wanted to share that. We talked about it at a study session, and we're not.
Because you just send them a letter and then not pay the dues, and that's all it takes to get out.
Yeah, so we're not members of ICLEI as of,
Well, we'll be letting it lapse.
we're not going to be renewing the membership.
Wonderful.
So I just want to let you know.
Okay, the next ones I have up are Rose Johnson and Richard Langdon.
My name is Rose Johnson. I'm from Gladstone. It occurred to me while people were talking about taxes a minute ago, and I talked about excessive spending last week. Did you know that under Measure 50, since it started in 1997, that if we did get a 3% tax increase each year, our taxes have gone up a whopping 56%. If your current budget this year is over $800 million, isn't it 821? If you get another 56% in 15 years out of us, that'll be $12 million? This is, and we're having these kinds of increases in our property taxes while our property values are going down. It doesn't make sense. Now, on another subject, we noticed that you've been treating Mr. Langdon discriminatorily. We noticed that when you get some mild-mannered citizen who's talking about something you either don't care about or you don't disagree with, you let them have extra minutes. But Mr. Langdon comes into the hearing and he tries to talk about something that you don't agree with, that you might call controversial. You're cutting him off. And it's really embarrassing. It's conduct unbecoming for any of you that agree with it. And this type of treatment of a citizen is exactly what freedom of speech was designed to protect. So I got a warning for you people, you commissioners. Some of you will get voted out of office eventually. We citizens, we're going to do it. You're running meetings with censorship. That's completely un-American and undemocratic. And if you don't change your ways, do you realize that you're instigating a revolt, a tax revolt against property taxes and other fees, a revolt against light rail and free speech violations? So what I'm giving you fair warning today from citizens like me. If you don't change your ways, we're going to go after you like the village people chasing Frankenstein. God bless America.
Good morning, Richard Langdon. You have my address. This morning, I didn't intend to testify, but then I heard a statement this morning that was just shocking, the level of arrogance from anyone to say this and to think that it's okay. And Charlotte Lehan is smiling about this. That just shows you the level of arrogance. The statement that was made this morning is that the citizen communication time will now be limited because she and others have far more important things to do than to listen to citizens, hear their questions, and answer their questions. That's arrogance, isn't it? What do you guys think? So not only are citizens ignored, as I've evidenced over the last year and a half, but now their time allowed for them to be ignored is going to be limited. Freedom of speech 101. Freedom of speech 101. Let me say it one more time. Freedom of speech 101. And I'm amazed. I mean, I'm almost speechless. The arrogance. If all 80 seats are not filled next week and the week after and the week after that by outraged citizens, outraged by that statement, let alone all the other bad behavior that's gone on over here that I've noticed and I've been subject to, if all 80 seats are not filled with outraged citizens demanding resignations for anybody that subscribes to those thoughts, then it's very sad. We're frankly heading for a revolution. Because it's not just this body. It's rampant throughout our government. Now, that revolution's probably not in a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's probably in 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, 70 years. And it's really sad. Because it didn't have to come to that. But it would come to that for two reasons. One, the behavior of so-called government servants, and the apathy of the citizens not to fill those 80 seats and call them on it. Thanks.
Okay, what? No. Oh, no, that's okay. Just to clarify, on changing up how we do citizen communication, I want to reiterate that this is a work in progress. And we have looked at a number of ways to do citizen communication by looking at a number of other jurisdictions, both in this area and outside this area. Almost every large venue has to put some kinds of limits on citizen communication. If it is a very large jurisdiction, like large cities like Portland or Los Angeles or whatever, they can't have limitless citizen communication. Sometimes they limit, as many of the meetings that I go to, limit by total amount of time that they allow for citizen communication. Sometimes they divide the time depending on how many people want to speak so that it's down to 1 minute or 2 minutes. And I know they've done that in Washington County for a number of things, rather than cut off a number. And sometimes they limit the number of times people can speak in a given month or 2 months, that you can only speak once every 6 weeks. So there are many different ways to approach that, but the reality is that if you have a jurisdiction with 1 million people in it, or in the case of Clackamas County, 400,000 people, there is a limit to how much everyone can come and speak every week and still get the work done that needs to be done. What we were suggesting doing, because there were requests to move the citizen communication forward in the agenda, is to move it forward in the agenda and set a time limit, say until for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then whatever whatever people were left over that did not get to speak in that time would move to the end of the meeting, so that we could then spend 30 minutes up front, particularly for people who have not had an opportunity to speak before, so that they don't have to wait an inordinate amount of time, and then and then go ahead and do the business that needs to be taken care of during the business meeting. Because much of what we do is business that absolutely has to be done. And then when we're done with that, go back to citizen communication at the end. So in that way, we're not cutting anyone out from speaking, but making sure that we can get the business of the county done. And then in addition, moving one meeting a month to an evening meeting that would be where we would do our best to keep the business items out of that meeting and instead have them in the day meetings. And that would give us a longer period of time where right from the beginning we could do hour and a half or more of citizen communication, and in a setting that is not like this, because people have also complained about this, that it is this is a very formal setting. None of us designed it this way, but this is what it is. But in a setting where we're not several steps higher, but it can be more interactive, and we can have more back and forth discussion on the Thursday evening. It was very difficult for us to find a Thursday evening of the month that isn't already committed. Almost everybody, well, no, I'll take that back. Everybody up here except Josie and Josie could attest to this, is busy with public business almost every night, and many times on Saturdays and Sundays as well. There are, and most of those are citizen contact things. The Clackamas Cities Association, where we go and meet with all the city councilors and mayors. That happens on the third Thursday, or the fourth Thursday of the month. So the fourth Thursday evening of the month is out for that reason. And everyone else we looked at, and in fact, the third Thursday, Commissioner Bernard already has a standing engagement for, two standing engagements for, that he has agreed to give up because the rest of us are free on the third Thursday, and it's very hard to find a night that we are not at a C4 meeting or MPAC or something. The evenings are taken up with the business of citizen communication all over the county and throughout the region. And all of these people work very hard to get out to communities on the weekends and the evenings, and so we're willing to go forward and try this Thursday, one Thursday a month, see how that works, and then and make those other changes to the Thursday morning meeting so that we can get at least significant number up front, and reserve the rest for after the business is done. And we expect that it will change, that some of the things we try will work and some of them may not. We don't have a formal business meeting the last 2 weeks of May because of budget hearings. So that's why it's hard to put everything into effect very quickly. And we have notice requirements for how agendas have to be noticed out the week before. So it's something we're looking at. We know that we'll continue to adapt it, and as it has been since someone else was county commissioner. We continue to change and try to make it work better for the citizens, try to make it work better for the commissioners and the staff, and getting the work done that needs to get done for the county. And so that was my clarification on that. And that brings us to commissioner communication. And would anyone like to start? I usually start at one end or the other, but how about the middles? They're always sitting here.
Look to me?
Or
Okay.
I can. go
I'd
to
be
Josie.
hap-
She'd probably like to talk.
Josie?
Well, I thought she might make some comments towards the end.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
First, you know, I am a member of a couple of state boards. AOC, I serve on a new committee that's looking at juvenile justice. And I also serve on a state committee on community corrections, which I have to attend. Frankly, it can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars to the county. Last week I was in Salem on last Thursday, which I cannot change those meetings. And we talked about the formula for providing community corrections. Had I not been there, I wouldn't have known about it. I wouldn't be able to work with Chris Hoy from Community Corrections and make sure that Clackamas County is getting what we deserve. So there are many, many meetings. One thing I learned as a volunteer mayor in Milwaukee is that you had to attend as many meetings as possible so that people remembered who you were and that you could go to Salem and you had the right contacts to make things happen. Lake Road, for example, was built, and frankly, light rail was funded by the federal government thanks to those visits to Washington, D.C. This last visit didn't actually have anything to do with light rail for me. I was there as on a national committee for NACO, National Association of Counties, of which I serve on a public safety position. Frankly, I'm a little bit ashamed that somebody would suggest that I use the FA word. I did, in fact, use the A word. You know, I apologize if that was miscommunicated by the only other person standing there when I was talking with actually, I wasn't talking with Mr. Langdon. I was not confronting Mr. Langdon. I was actually talking to somebody totally different. And frankly, it was an exaggeration of what I said, and I apologize that if they did not hear that properly. I can assure you that the A word was used. The FA word, or two words, and I don't think I need to spell out what those mean, were not actually used. Please don't. I am interested in disabled parking in Oregon City. I was a little bit surprised. I have heard about this issue, and I have talked a little bit about a joint parking structure opportunity. And I hope people will take a look at our meeting videos. And I totally agree with Mr. Langdon. I am frankly worried about the future of this country. Revolution would be a terrible, terrible, terrible disaster. Our founding fathers spent a long time creating a constitution that's lasted over 200 years. And I'm honored to be an American citizen. And frankly, a little bit frightened that we can't have even a civil conversation in today's world. Light rail has also had some impacts on places like Willamette View Manor, and actually I had an opportunity to speak to somebody that addressed an issue that light rail might have on that building and on that facility, and I did talk to them, and they worked with the county, and they did resolve it, in fact. I spent 24 hours, was it last week? Yes, last week, in a fire station with TV-FNR, Citizens Academy. Learned an awful lot. I was surprised to find out that a lot of those calls, which they do about 25,000, are emergency medical. Many of those calls are very expensive and could have been serviced in another way. And TV-FNR is actually looking at other ways to do that. That might be, instead of taking a ladder truck with 4 firemen, they're looking at a vehicle that has all that equipment and one person could go to. One lady had over 200 calls last year. She's a diabetic, and every night, well, 200 times, they had to go and give her an IV bag. You know, I would say that some education on how to manage your diabetes could save the taxpayers a ton of money. One of the things that was said today is that people can ask questions. We're certainly willing to have questions asked and never suggested that people can't ask questions. Just might not be appropriate, and I think it was addressed earlier that if it's not on the agenda, sometimes we can't answer those questions unless they're posted. And we're working to figure that out. And Jamie's going to have some comments about an idea she had. I believe Paul worked with her on how we could communicate and answer some of these questions that would be available on the web. So I'm excited about some of those new ideas. I think the idea of moving to Thursday is great. Actually, we are listening. A lot of those ideas that the chair has suggested actually came from that audience out there. So I look forward to moving that forward. So that's me, and thank you.
Commissioner Leininger.
All right. Well, thank you so many of you for still being here. I want to talk about what I think is a big picture. I'm not sure that everyone who's expressed a view about whether Portland to Oak Grove light rail should happen is thinking in these terms. I'm not sure if everyone who had a view about urban renewal is thinking in these terms. But when I think about what's happening in terms of whether or not we're going to invest in a key transit system like that or be able to put in the core systems in unincorporated Clackamas County that let business and homes thrive, I think it's in some way we're calling the question on whether we want to keep protecting the small rural towns that we have outside of the urban growth boundary and the farmland that we have in Clackamas County in more rural areas and the livability of neighborhoods in our urban core, because fundamentally one of the reasons why we're able to have a wonderfully rural lifestyle in some communities like Malino or Beaver Creek or other parts of the county is because there isn't sprawl that just goes straight out and paves right over it. It's because in other parts of the county, within the urban growth boundary, people are living in more dense communities that are supported and served by things like transit investments, like light rail investments. So I think as we try to figure out where we stand on light rail and even whether urban renewal can be used to support, you know, a development in unincorporated Clackamas County, we got to think about the larger picture. Do we want to be a place that continues to support open space, rural small towns, and farmland? Because that is part of what is at stake here. Now, I do support completion of the Portland-Milwaukee light rail line, but I also think when we're dealing with a divisive issue in a community, we have to be really careful not to paint the issue in incorrectly black and white terms. You know, and so in my book, that would mean saying, you know, oh, there is not a single reasonable point being made by people who have a different view than me. Just like people who have a different view might say, gosh, there's not a single reasonable thing about transit investments. You know, I think that there are some really reasonable points that are being raised, and I want to acknowledge them because I think that, you know, if we're going to move forward as a community, one way or the other, how this gets resolved, we've got to acknowledge the truth and what one another is saying. And one of the truths is, in the last 10, 20 years, the federal share of transit funding has really changed. It used to be 80% of projects were funded by the federal government. Then it moved to 60%. And now I think we think it's at 50%. And you know, truly that does change. It changes the value proposition of what's going on when we're having to find 50% of the project budget in a local area. And I think that we're so far down the line on Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail, and I believe that it's a good project and it needs to happen. I absolutely think we should finish it. I think that the vote that is going to happen in September, whatever way it comes out, doesn't change the fact that we will have had at that point for over 2 years a binding contract that commits us to paying the $25 million. But going forward, I really do think we have to think carefully about what we do next in rail transit, because these are expensive projects. And the amount of federal funding has changed. So I want people to know that I hear that point. It's a good point. We need to pause and be careful and thoughtful about what we do next in transit. It's a really reasonable point, and we need to be careful and thoughtful about what we do in terms of growth management and regulation. You know, some people have talked about whether or not you might have to have 20 units to an acre, which is like Pearl District density for new area that comes in the urban growth boundary. And that was never a formally adopted policy at Metro, but someone put it out there and it raised a bunch of hackles. And I say in response to that, yeah, that would be really problematic to say, hey, areas that are sort of on the rural fringe of the urban area, if you come in, you have to develop at these extreme densities. But, you know, my neighborhood in Lake Oswego is not going to be that dense, just, you know, your area that comes in. I think we need to make sure we're being sensible, that we're actually being practical and pragmatic, even as we protect the farms and forest land and rural towns that rely on density, and how we've decided as a community to plan how we manage growth and invest in transportation systems. We've got to be reasonable. And that's one of the things I hear people saying, whether or not I agree with you on light rail. That's one of the reasonable points that I hear that's out there. And think about cost. That's another reasonable point that's out there. And I just want to say, you know, whether or not we're in the same place on whether Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail should get completed, you know, I do think that you make some good points, and I think we need to incorporate those into what we're doing and how we move forward into the future. So, thank you.
Why don't we go with Paul so we can save Jamie and Josie for closing?
Okay. Just want to apologize for everyone for being a little bit late. I had a little event that was called it was basically celebrating a ribbon cutting for a Made in America home in Lake Oswego that was built with all American products, and was done by a developer. And it cost about 2% more to build this home, but it took a little bit more time, took a lot of effort, but a lot of local vendors, a lot of local spending that was done in the local area, and a great project. It's the first one in the Pacific Northwest that's been done like this, and hopefully it's a trend that continues. Must have been a wreck on I-205 because it was stopped, so I should have been here a lot sooner, but whatever the wreck was up the highway, I again apologize for being late. I do want to just talk about a little bit about when we started our communication Wednesday evening at 5:30, the Commissioner Roundtable. The goal was really to take some of the pressure off that the meetings we have here, because a lot of people say they want to come and talk, they want to be able to ask questions, they want to dialogue with us, and that was the purpose of creating that Commissioner Roundtable. So we have had, you know, some attendance, but I would encourage really a lot of you to come, and if you really want to have that two-way dialogue, it is a better venue for that. It is difficult to do here. It's not impossible, but it is a better venue. The next one is next Wednesday, May 2nd, at the building right across the way here at 5:30. So I please encourage you to come and participate in that. We're at the budget season right now, and I will say that we hear there are a lot of times around budget season, we hear people constantly talking about our priorities, our spending priorities, what we're doing with our money, and I would encourage people to attend. I believe the first meeting is May 21st, and it's usually about 3 to 4 days, 2 to 3 days of presentations and some discussion, and that could potentially carry over into the week following. It's very interesting because, you know, last year, all year long, we hear people, what do you do in your budget, so on and so forth, but we didn't really have that much public attendance. So for those of you who really want to understand how complex it is, not that anyone wants it to be complex, but it is, but I really encourage you to all participate and at least understand how complex it is. But there's a lot of material, a lot of ground to cover, and so that begins, is that going to be in DSB on the 21st?
Yeah.
In the same building across the way where our Commissioner Roundtables are held. So by all means, please attend. And I did hear some of the comments, and I, as well as Commissioner Damon, really make a note of all those comments. I write everyone's name down. I really typically make notes about what they talked about. We are listening. We are trying to factor that in. There are a lot of people that have opinions. You can take any issue. There's two sides to it. And we have to listen to both sides. And both sides, we're responsible to the party on both sides. We represent really everyone, regardless what side of an issue they're on. So I just want to just convey to people that we do listen, and I really consider both sides, and I listen to everything I can. And again, I appreciate people's patience through this as we manage the time of the meetings and the change. It is somewhat the chair's prerogative to determine how to run the meeting. I just encourage you to help us work through that and be civil and participate in the process. So thank you all for staying as late as it is today.
Commissioner Damon.
Sure. So I too would like to thank all of you that have stayed. I mean, the business meeting has gone a bit longer, but I am heartened by how many people we had today and how many folks we were able to hear from, so I appreciate that. I am concerned that we are trying to make some changes. I know you've heard from several commissioners already talk about some changes that we're proposing to citizen communication. And the reason why we're doing that is because of what we've heard from you. And what we've heard is that you'd like more opportunity, you'd like an evening meeting, you'd like to encourage more people to be able to come, new people to be able to come. And so we're trying to figure out how to make that happen by researching what other folks are doing and striking that balance between the business that we need to get done and providing those opportunities. So I worry a little bit that when we put out what I think is a good faith effort to address the concerns that we're hearing, that isn't quite good enough. And I ask you that if you have comments about how we can do it better, but that you share those with us and work with us on this. I think you hear a strong commitment on the commission that this is something that we want to do. We've been talking about moving to an evening meeting for months and months now. A couple of meetings ago, I did ask a question about costs involved, not so much for it to be a barrier or an excuse, but because I wanted to understand what the costs might be for taping in the evening, for additional staff time. I just didn't know, and I think it's important for us to be aware of those costs going into this. There's a strong commitment to do this. I look forward to the evening meetings. I look forward to a lot more new faces. I've made a commitment, I mentioned this a couple of months ago, to get more children, more youth in these meetings and talking to us, because the decisions that we're making here are impacting our kids. And it's really important that we hear from them, their perspectives, and what they would like to see happen. So I just put that out there about citizen communication, and call me, email me, talk with me about your ideas and your experiences about working in other jurisdictions, because we'd like to learn from that to see what's going to work best for us. So Mariana Moore today talked about, and you've talked about this before, Mariana, about, we ask these questions and then they kind of go up in the air and we don't know whatever happens to them. And I agree with that. And we talked about this at our study session, the last couple of study sessions, about what do we do with that. And one thing that I had proposed, and we're considering this, is doing a running recently asked questions page on our website, so that questions that are asked in the business meeting, that those are posed on the website, recently asked, and what we're doing to address those, and links to steps that we're taking or answers. So that's at least one way. The other thing we're talking about is changing in citizen communication, particularly on the Thursday evenings, to allow us some time, because right now people come up and they testify, and then we hear from the next and the next and the next, but actually build in some time for us to be able to say, have more of a conversation. What are we going to do with that? How can we move forward with that? Or here's what we know. And so there are some things in the works to I think, make it better. And I really appreciate, Marianne, your asking that question about, the viewers and the people that don't come meeting to meeting, they don't know what we're doing to answer these questions, and it kind of looks like we're not doing anything. And that's not what we want to convey. So I appreciate that. The last thing I want to say is just how much I appreciate you welcoming Josie. And all the kids that were here this morning. I do think it's important for us to be reminded regularly who is impacted, who is benefiting, and who is potentially negatively impacted, by the decisions that we're making today. And it really strikes me when I yesterday I was working with my older daughter, who's 18, about budgeting for college and making choices for college. She's a senior at Estacada High School. And we were just looking at costs, monthly costs, and we live out in Eagle Creek. And she had said, well, maybe I'll carpool or maybe I'll drive, down to PSU. And we started penciling it out. And what we realized was it was going to cost her about $320 a month for her to drive to PSU with gas costs and parking. And the student bus pass would be about $45 a month. Well, that's an easy decision for her to make, to get on the number 30 bus from Estacada and either go all the way downtown or go into the green line and take the train all the way into PSU. That cost and savings for her for transportation is one term of tuition. That's huge over the course of 4 years of college. So there are decisions that we're making now that really impact. And when I went to PSU in the 80s, the line from Gresham wasn't in place, and we packed as many kids as we could in our car to drive down to carpool to save costs, and then tried to negotiate where we might be able to park downtown. And it was tough. And so I would have loved to have had that option available to me. And I'm glad that folks prior to me made those decisions so now my daughter can benefit. And I hope to make those decisions so that this daughter can benefit and a lot of the kids that we saw today. So Josie, did you want to say anything about what do you think about our meeting today?
I actually liked to be here today because I learned what is going on in the community around me, and it's nice to know that what people think and what people think of what the commissioners are doing, and on the good side, I did get my homework done, so.
She was working a little bit on that. So thanks.
And also, I learned some things here and heard things that you wouldn't hear in school. So it's a good thing to come out and hear other people's opinions and not be, well, yeah, it's just good to hear other people's opinions. So
thanks, sweetie.
Great. Thank you. Yes, and I will, I just have a couple of comments to wrap up. And one is, I was reminded that one of the reasons that the committee that recommended we go to a 5-person board instead of the old 3-person board was because 3 people was the quorum required, well, 2 at the time, but it was very difficult with a 3-member board to have anyone be absent, to have an opportunity for instance, for Commissioner Savas to attend this very important ribbon-cutting ceremony or groundbreaking ceremonies or things that we're invited to that are important things happening in the community, as well as attending important regional meetings and other things. So that they recognized that if you had a 5-member board, it would free up on occasion 1 or 2 to be out and doing those things and not have everything grind to a halt. So that was one of the reasons actually that we moved to the 5-person commission. And then I do want to follow up on all the young people who were here. I thought that was very inspirational, and it does remind me also, I was talking to one of the one of the petition gatherers who was gathering signatures about light rail. And he was telling me that 80% of the people were opposed to it, that he approached or that approached him or whatever, of the people he talked to. And only 20% were in favor. And then he went on to say, and the funny thing was, everyone who was in favor of light rail, they were all young people. And I said, well, that's probably not surprising, and I think we have to look at that as somewhat instructive, the same way that we do look at technology, which a lot of us in, I want to say in my age bracket, but I mean, I try to keep up with technology. I've built websites and run websites, but I'll admit it's hard to keep up with technology. And my nephews and grandnephews who are 10 and 11, they can do these things just automatically. Technology is easy for them, where it's harder for some of us. And, but you have to look at it as this is the future. And I think we have to look at what young people are doing, what they see the future to be. And I have always felt, as an elected official, that I'm not only beholden to my constituents, but also to the constituents of the future, to making sure that they have the same kind of opportunities that we had, and so I'm always keeping them in mind as well, that we don't preclude a future for the young people, because they are not here to vote, but they're a lot of the reason that we do vote. And I say that as a person who doesn't have children and or grandchildren. I borrow other people's children and grandchildren, but they are still very important to me and what happens in the future. And with that, I believe we are have finished our business of the day, and we are adjourned.